Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isaac O. I am a public policy intern at the Alliance for Innovation and Infrastructure. This is an interview with Ildi Telegrafi for our Energy Month series, and we will be discussing the natural gas industry. Ildi, how are you doing today?
Good. How you doing, Isaac?
Doing great, doing great. Ildi is currently a senior planning analyst at Con Edison, and we are so grateful to have him here to answer a couple questions about working in the natural gas industry. Without further ado, let's get to it. Ildi, would you like to talk a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I'm an engineer by education. I have experience in operations and economics and policy, and I try to bring all that together in my role in forecasting of energy, where we try to predict the future of energy systems as to enable better planning, procurement, installation, or operations.
What challenges do you face working specifically in natural gas and trying to apply these methods to natural gas energy specifically?
Well, I'll just say in all energy systems, the current model is that we try to chase the peak. So that's the value of energy that's consumed at 1 hour of the year. And that's the point that we design the system. So this goes the same for gas, and that peak hour, that's what drives the cost for natural gas systems because it requires expansion. As that peak increases beyond what's already available, then we have to expand our system to do that. And that leads to the addition of costs. Some of the challenges associated with that is the forecasting methodologies. So we generally utilize a top-down approach, which is the aggregate of all the system's data. So we look at things very high level, and which is good, which is great. But now we're getting into a world where we have more analytics, or more data, I should say, from all the way down to the customer level with meters that can communicate directly to a server that we can access that data from. So this allows us to utilize local trends as well as these system level trends and combine the two and create something of a bottom-up approach, or a combination of this top-down approach that's at the system level and a bottom approach that's kind of at the customer level.
That makes a lot of sense. And currently, since we are recording this interview in late July, this is the time when the peaks tend to get highest around the United States. In the Northern Hemisphere, we're seeing summer. Is that correct?
It would depend on the system and the location of the utility of the customers. So in the Northeast, and especially for gas, it's going to be the winter. Winter is going to be more of the time where that peak happens. For electric, it does happen in the summer.
How do you overcome some of these challenges? You've started discussing this already, this integration of top-down and bottom-up analytics. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about specifically about how you overcome the challenges in reconciling these two data sources?
Yes. So we have the data, but we need to be able to analyze it and to integrate it into our processes. So we need new software capable of processing that data, and we need new methodologies in developing these trends and then integrating these trends into the existing methods. So let me also say forecasting is the first step. So once you have forecasting, then you have planning, then you have procurement of materials, then you have installation of it, then you can get to operation of it. And forecasting is always the first step in this process. So to get the planning, you need to analyze what you're going to need to consume, say a 20-year time period. And that's where the forecasting piece comes in. The planning piece uses that high-level forecast to make the changes. Now what we can create with this lower-level forecast is we can create more granularity, so the impact of that plan can be much more granular. And we can perform analysis and follow-up steps that are more granular, and they add value in the long term for this process.
What would you like the public to know about your industry specifically?
I guess in terms of this conversation of peak, I would say that peak is what drives the rates higher for each customer. So that's kind of what they're paying off. It's just an easy, to say it in easy math, is just the cost of enabling this peak long term and divided by the number of customers that we see they're going to consume that peak long term. So as the customers go, if the customers go down or the peak increases, that value of the rate that the customers would pay, the delivery rate, would increase. The other way around, it would decrease. Why is that important to the customer? Because having this kind of localized peak modeling technology would allow us, the energy providers, planners, to kind of focus on these localized peaks that would eventually reduce them, or aim to reduce them, so that it would lead to lower costs for the customers, and would also jumpstart the transition for natural gas customers into electric customers, as is the plan with the clean energy transition.
So that's the perspective that you would like the public to know. And you mentioned the clean energy transition as well, which has become quite the focus of policymakers now. So is there anything that you think it would be especially valuable for policymakers to know about working in the natural gas industry with the specific type of work you do?
So the current model I said was peak chasing. So we want to incentivize the industry to kind of transition towards a peak flattening design model kind of approach. So with this kind of targeted, I'll call it peak shaving or peak reduction, we can eventually get to maybe a flatter peak, and that will in turn reduce customer costs or keep customer costs low because other things may change in the dynamic. And it'll also incentivize customers to transition to renewable energy resources like those that should be in place in the electrical power system via the clean energy transition.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, Ildi. That's all we have for today. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Isaac. Thanks for having me.